in 1967, Roland Barthes wrote La mort de l'auteur, the death of the author, an essay proclaiming that the opinions of an author on what his text may mean are irrelevant to the interpretation of said text. In 2020, Julian and Magnus Dorra decided that the author's abilities are just as irrelevant. This is Kill the Author. Hello and welcome to Kill the Author. I'm Julian.
I'm Magnus.
And we're here for episode 2 of School Days. Now, this one was kind of exhausting.
A lot happens in this episode.
A lot happens and simultaneously not a lot happens. That's the struggle of School Days, I think.
I think there's worse filler episodes yet to come.
Yeah. But also, like, the filler episodes are often the ones where the most shit happens, just in a very small amount of time. Basically, what we realized after the first episode and after our first attempt at recording this episode is that dedicating just one episode to one episode of the show is way too little. We need to make 2 episodes per episode of the show. Which, yeah, of course, like, how could anyone be concise about a 20-minute episode? That's completely impossible. We need so much more time for this. We're getting pretty close to going through it frame per frame at this point, but 10 minutes per episode should be fine, I think.
Yeah. So the very first scene takes place in a mall. It's mostly a clip show. It's the date that happens. The very first date between Makoto and Kotonoha.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I noted was that the very first shot is a shot of the sky, followed by the camera panning down. I only noted this because the first episode starts in the exact same fashion. But considering it only happens, aside from that, in episodes 6 and 11...
So you went through every single episode to check if the first shot is from the sky downwards?
I mean, it's just the first shot. It just took a minute. I didn't skim through every episode again.
That's still so much more commitment than I have. I respect it. I deeply respect it.
So I believe there's no point at all to be made about this. Unless you have a different opinion on there at all.
There's probably not... Like, okay, the only thing I can think of is that it pans down from the sky to the world.
World?
Yeah, that's Sekai. That's a bit of a stretch.
That all makes sense. I get it.
Going a little bit overboard on that one. It's probably just a cost-cutting thing. Like, especially in old anime or like in low-budget anime, you see that a lot, that there are a lot of panning shots where basically you don't need new animation. You just show the entire frame you painted. For like 10 seconds.
So next we see Makoto reading a love manual.
Mm-hmm.
It says 2007 on it. I don't think that's too relevant. We're probably in 2007, but I think this is relevant because in the previous episode there was a point about Kotonoha reading books all the time to the point where she doesn't really pay attention to anything else.
Yeah, that's like the one thing Makoto knew about her.
That's the one
she
thing. She
reads books and goes home.
The one thing the show went out of its way to explain to us.
Yeah.
Makoto was just sort of watching. And now we're in the opposite situation. Because while he's sitting there reading the love manual, Kotonoha just stands there and looks at him.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that as a role reversal.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of a role reversal.
I don't know if they did that intentionally. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's more interesting. This love manual shows up a few times in this episode. This is kind of the episode of the love manual, which seems to be like some... like the only real hint we get at what it says is things like when he stands there and reads the book, he reads out that that like being late for a date is outdated. That's something you don't do anymore these days. So assume it's like basically a dating manual. We gotta big back to that later on, what this book means, because I think it can be kind of illuminating about some of the themes of the show. But yeah. She arrives. She's actually the one who arrives a bit late. It's
Yeah.
not him. And so basically, being there early, as the manual tells him to, didn't do anything for him because he wasn't there already anyways.
As soon as he notices she's there, he immediately comedically freaks out, and she apologizes. Running theme of this episode, Kotonoha apologizes.
Kotonoha apologizes for shit Makoto does. Yeah, that's a constant in this episode. And after that, after she arrives slightly late and apologizes for that, we get sort of a clip show of their date.
Yeah. But also Dutch angles.
Yeah, okay. This shows Dutch angles. So just a real quick explanation. I'm going to give you some film theory here for those who don't know. What is a Dutch angle? A Dutch angle is basically when you film a scene with the camera slightly tilted. So usually you would hold the camera pretty much parallel to the ground with the shot, or the horizon is often used for that. Dutch angle means you're kind of tilting it. It's usually used to like freak the audience out a bit, to make a situation seem kind of strange because you don't usually view things like that. In the same way that unnatural lighting colors are used, like green, for example, to give a sort of oppressive, something's wrong here situation. So that's usually what Dutch angles are used for, to make a shot threatening and exciting. This show goes pretty far in the whole tilting the camera thing.
I don't think School Days understands what a Dutch angle is supposed to be.
Yeah, it's like Battlefield Earth. It's just constantly Dutch angles. And like some of the Dutch angles are 90 degrees.
Someone just accidentally kicked over the 2D camera.
Someone just kicked over the animation studio. And sometimes between shots, it's gonna go like, okay, it's 90 degrees tilted, and then the next shot is 90 degrees tilted into the other direction. So basically 180 of the
I know what
screen.
shot you mean, and I have some other notes about that shot in particular for later.
Is that in this episode?
That's around the end. So that's
around the end. Okay.
Our next episode then.
Okay. We're gonna get to that then when we get to it. So let's just do a quick summary of what happens on this date.
Okay.
So we don't stick around here for ages. Because there's a lot to say on that. But why don't you give us the run through?
So first, Makoto shamelessly looks at a pin-up magazine.
Yeah, they're in like a bookstore.
It's like a off-brand Playboy. He's just looking into that thing with Kotonoha directly behind him, and then as she notices, she's kind of just like gives him a smile, like a slightly tortured smile. Like, this is you.
Yeah, she has that. Oh, like that's what I hear in my head when I see that view she has. It's like a very slight smile. Her eyes are closed and her eyebrows are up in anguish. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what I'm dealing with.
I mean, she has already been established as being too good for this anime.
Yeah.
But he notices, and his reaction is just no reaction at all.
Yeah, the question I ask in this is like, was that in his love manual?
Is that normal?
Is that something the love manual said? Establish dominance by looking at boobs on a date? Like, because later on, it's talked about that kind of the reason why this date failed is because he read the love manual, because it told him to do certain things. So is this something the love manual told him? Who fucking wrote that book?
Assert dominance by looking at other women's pinups.
It's a fucking pickup artist book or something like that.
So then we get another couple of shots, including a shot where she's at like one of those machines. I forgot. I don't know what you call
claw
them.
machines.
Yeah, the claw machines. Where she kind of really wants those dolls in there.
Yeah, there's these like pink-haired cat character dolls, like cute chibi little dolls. They show up later on in the series too. They're like, I don't know, a mascot or something. And she wants to get one of those out of the claw machine.
Mm. And around that time, Makoto kind of comes around the corner, his arms jam-packed with those little dolls.
He very much overdoes it. He realizes she wants one of those dolls and gives her like 10, despite her maybe just wanting to play the game, like kind of win one. Which I think she did. Like, we see her playing this game, I think, and she picks one up with the claw machine and puts it over. We don't see her getting it out, but I think she just won the game. Like, she actually did it. What is Makoto doing here? He's like undercutting her victory.
Next we see Makoto playing a arcade fighting game.
Alone. A 2-player arcade fighting game that he's playing alone.
I just wrote down bootleg Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Because in the top right corner it does say the character he's playing is named Rye.
Yeah.
Spelled R-Y-E.
Rye. Playing against Akoma with his best friend Kne. Who's basically a red recolor of Rye. Rye.
Right.
With other characters wheat and other grains. I don't know grain names in English. Kotonoha, meanwhile, in the scene, just stands behind him and watches him play that game and win, and he turns around and gives her like a victory sign with his hand, which is, why didn't you play with her? And if she didn't want to play, why did you play? What is the game here, dude?
To show off his awesome gaming skills.
True, there's nothing more impressive to a woman than amazing gaming skills. It's true, gamers are the ultimate chad.
He's a true gamer.
He's a true alpha gamer and he's trying to prove it. We'll get back to this. I have a bit to say about that once we get through the whole clip show.
Next, I think we get a clip in like the mall's restaurant. Where I think...
A cafe or something like that.
In a cafe. Where I think Kotonoha is like still deciding what she wants. As Makoto just shows up with a plate filled with all kinds of food items.
Yeah, like maybe the entire...
The whole stock.
Card. What's the name? Menu? Yeah, like the entire menu.
This is another instance, I think, of Makoto overdoing it.
Yeah, it's pretty much just the same thing as the one before. It's hammering that point in. Makoto is overdoing it. But I think it's kind of weird that like half the shots we see here in this clip show are Makoto overdoing it. And the other half of the shots are him being really disinterested and weird. Like, why is he playing that game if the thing we're trying to get here is that he's too into it, too invested, that he overdoes it? Why is he looking at that pin-up magazine if the point we're trying to get is he's doing too much, he's getting too hard into it? I don't know. Maybe it's kind of setting up stuff for later, that despite him doing what the book says and overdoing it at this point, he's also just a piece of shit. He's also just a massive disinterested piece of shit.
We get one more shot in this clip show.
Yeah.
Of Kotonoha accidentally bumping into someone outside.
Yeah, he like kind of bumps into, she kind of bumps into him and then he gets angry at her. And it's without audio. We just hear soundtrack, so he kind of screams at her probably.
Yeah, and then Makoto jumps in the way.
And then as soon as that guy gets loud again, Makoto is like, he takes a step back. he gets instantly terrified by the situation, and Kotonoha sort of has to step between them and apologize.
She apologizes again.
She does the apology thing again. Then after that, the clip show basically ends, and we see the end of the date, which is essentially Makoto saying he had fun with Kotonoha while they say goodbye at the train station again. Yeah,
and then comes what I believe is a very important little scene of Makoto just doing the kissy lips, the disgusting school days kissy lips, expecting a kiss from Kotonoha in return.
Yeah, he's like on the train and she's outside, and he does the kissy lips at her, like sort of expecting his reward at this point.
Before he gets to, though, the train doors close and the train drives off with him, and the scene doesn't end. But we did very clearly see that Kotonoha did not actually want to kiss him.
Yeah, or she was, I don't know, overwhelmed, but it really seems like she didn't want to kiss him.
Like in the previous date, he's been overdoing it a lot, but I still got the vibe that he was at least trying. And I sort of appreciated that.
Yeah.
But now it feels like he was just doing this expecting a kiss.
Yeah, he was kind of just doing it for a reward.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Yeah. I have something really big to say about this whole montage, but other things that happen in this episode will come back to that. So I think I'm just going to wait for that until the end of the episode and then give my entire thoughts on the whole themes after we're done with the summary, basically.
All right.
Next,
we get to the intro.
Yeah.
The intro has not been in the previous episode.
Yeah.
This is the first time it shows up. So this is also probably the only time we're going to go through it. Because I don't think it ever changes.
Yeah. The opening is, I think, the same for all episodes. The ending changes sometimes, but the opening is, I think, the same. So, with the opening, the first thing I think we see, or is there something before that, is the title card.
Yeah, we just see a few pretty regular establishing shots of our three protagonists.
So, the title card has additional text on it.
Has a little subtitle.
Yeah, which I think from what I've seen on Google and Google Images, that's also the subtitle of the visual novel. Also, I've been thinking, maybe somewhere while making this podcast, I should play the visual novel maybe. Somewhere towards the end to maybe give a little context to things. Because this text kind of gives me a thought about the visual novel that I haven't had before. I'm going to read it out real quick. In the school, the three guys met. Their relation has been changed in the season and turned into 3 love stories.
So I guess shout outs to Google Translator.
or the unpaid intern who knows a little English. Yeah, it's not perfect. But here's the thing that I find really interesting. If this is also the subtitle of the visual novel, then these lines, in this school, the 3 guys met and it turned into 3 love stories. That would mean that the visual novel is also mainly about these 3 characters.
But maybe what does 3 love stories mean?
3 love stories is a bit debatable what that means, because there's kind of just... I mean, there's Makoto and Kotonoha and Makoto and Sekai.
Yeah, but maybe there's a 3rd one we just don't know of.
But
that's what I thought.
Yeah, but there's the talk of these 3 guys, and that's kind of what's confusing me, because a lot of our interpretation of why the anime is so fucking weird as it is that they kind of try to cram all these different people you can date into one show. And this would mean that's not the case. This would mean that the visual novel is also just about these 3 people with a supporting cast of maybe these other girls.
There's a point later that I'm gonna mention where I went through a list of characters that I saw on the wiki. There's a wiki.
Okay.
There's an insane amount of characters in the visual novel. It seems
there's way more than here.
Yeah, there's so many.
Oh no! So they did make cuts,
like 50 or something. I don't even know.
Jesus. Although I did read that there's multiple visual novels in that setting. Like they use the same setting over and over again. There's school days. There's summer days, and like a lot of other ones.
Lots of days.
And I know that I found that out because I was Googling Haramihama, which is the train station they always get by. And that's apparently one that shows up in all of these games. That's just a constant in that setting. So maybe these characters are split out of all these games. I don't know. I frankly don't need to know. But it would be interesting to know a little bit more about the visual novel. Yeah, let's go through the intro.
So next we get a shot of first Kotonoha and then Sekai in what I wrote down as a longing pose. They're kind of just standing there with their hands up like they're expecting something. And what's interesting here, something that is repeated throughout the intro, is first we get a show of Kotonoha doing something, repeated by the same shot again of Sekai doing the same thing, but mirror inverted.
There's also these shots a bit later on. Like, yeah, it seems to show both of them in that intro. There's also a shot later on where they're nude. And
yeah, there's a few.
Yeah, and what I actually wrote down here and I thought was kind of interesting was there's nipples.
Yeah, there's nipples.
You don't see that in anime a lot. Like, they're kind of obscured. And the shots work in the way that you first see Kotonoha sort of turn around, then you see Sekai sort of turn around, and in that shot, you afterwards see all the female characters, too, that are in the show. They also all turn around.
But let's wind back a little to where we just were, because I wrote some more stuff down. So first it shows them both in like this longing pose, and then we see a shot of both girls, again mirrored, this time with Makoto in the background as well. And then a third shot of both of them standing in the darkness back to back. The line in the song that plays there reads out, "I don't know when you flew into my life, my blue angel. You smile at me as we pass, but I can only look at the ground." I just went ahead a little. That's actually from the next shot. Kotonoha and Sekai kind of walking by Makoto, again mirrored, with Makoto just looking off into the background without noticing them.
Yeah.
And then they both look into the ground, which coincides with the lyrics, you smile at me as we pass, but I can only look at the ground.
Yeah, so these lyrics. We've talked last time a bit extensively about the lyrics of the ending, which I argued sort of prove one of my theories that Sekai is sort of the focal point of the show. That she's sort of the one the plot is angled around, because she's the one who impacts everything. Without her, nothing would have happened in the plot. She's kind of like, you can see her as, if you see her as a secondary character, she sort of fits she fills the role of like the manic pixie dream girl. Basically the character who comes into some dude's life and spices it up and suddenly makes it interesting and stuff like that. But you could also see it as her being sort of the catalyst of the plot and sort of the thing the plot is centered around. I think her character growth is the most interesting one. And I personally thought that the intro sort of makes it seem even more like the plot is about her. But you had a different opinion on that.
How I understood it is with the lyrics always playing over identical shots of Kotonoha and Sekai, I thought that maybe it's supposed to tell us that the text could be sung by both of them. And during the chorus, there's actually two singers singing the text. So how I see this is, it's basically both characters expressing the same thoughts. And I mostly thought that was interesting because before this, the show really went out of its way to make it seem, at least, to make it seem like Sekai isn't actually interested in being with Makoto, aside for the kiss.
Yeah.
And now that the intro plays, this is all thrown out of the window.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they're both longing for him. Whatever, who cares? There's like an equivalence now.
Yeah, that's true. Like, both of them are sort of portrayed here in the same way towards Makoto, if you look at it like that. So that's, when we talk about literary analysis or visual analysis, that's a very solid point. Like, the framing supports it, the way the lyrics are played and the way it's a duet at some point supports it. My personal perspective on why I think it still supports that Sekai is the main character is that the lyrics sort of fill the role of her dialogue at the end of the last episode. If you remember, at the end of the last episode, Makoto asked her, why is she doing this? And she basically said, the reason she's doing all of this is for fun and because she likes to impact sort of the lives of other people and see love bloom and stuff like that. And I feel the lyrics sort of look like that. Like someone on the outside looking in and longing for something that's in there. Like the way she described before, that she's like with a reality show looking outside, impacting what's happening in there. Here it's, she wants that person who's in there to come out to her, that blue angel, to learn how to fly and get on the outside with her. When at this point, he can only smile at her when she passes. She only looks at the ground, which again is like looking down onto the world.
But they both do this.
They both do this. They visually both do this at this point, yeah. I just feel the lyrics sort of support that direction more. But both points are absolutely valid in this case.
Next we get some really, really short shots of a phone and a notepad. I just thought those were noteworthy because this is kind of the way he communicates with them. He uses this notepad whenever he communicates with Sekai in class. And phones are kind of a running theme throughout the entire show.
Yeah, the notepad and the phone are both sort of methods of talking about their feelings in this show. That's true. Like, both of these sort of fill that point.
There's also the line, I turn back and call to you, but for now only in my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything, I just wrote it down.
Yeah, that's the same. That's, again, something I think sort of fits with Sekai, who kind of, with the kiss before and with something that's going to happen a bit later in this episode, sort of has a very subtle way of trying to get together with Makoto, I think, if that's actually what they're going for in this case, which is sort of not trying at all, but hoping he picks up on it anyways, which is a bad idea because Makoto seems like the most imperceptive person I've ever seen. He just doesn't realize fucking anything, but yeah.
And then we get the shot that you mentioned.
Yeah.
With, again, Kotonoha and Sekai first shown in winter clothes, while there's snow in the background. And then shown on their own, naked, nipples and everything.
Yeah.
The snow thing, I mostly just linked this to the line that is there, which says, it's an innocent pain that piles up like snow.
Yeah. But
I just realized that.
Yeah, there's only one point in the show where there's snow and where there's winter. We'll get to it.
later.
It's gonna be a while, but it's
man.
the end of the show. There's gonna be something we're gonna have to say about that, I'm sure, by then.
And then, after this, with the naked shots, we get more naked shots.
Yeah, like all the other girls.
I wrote down the order they're in. First showing Setsuna, who was already in the last episode. She's the small one. Then Kato, who shows up in this episode for the first time. Then Nanami and Hikari, who show up later in the show. And then I just wrote them down as squad, which is 3 girls that are sort of relevant. I couldn't exactly figure out their names, so I just wrote squad.
They're somewhat relevant, but that's sort of order of appearance then, I assume. Like, they show up here in the order they appear in the episodes. Animes do that a lot.
Yeah.
When they show characters like that, yeah.
Then we get another shot of Makoto. This time we see him, like, from inside the school's corridor. He's standing in the doorway, in the backlight, with, like, orange light shining behind him. Kind of like, it has sort of a romantic feeling to it. And he just kind of stands there, and then he looks back at the camera as we get over to the next text. I also put this down under longing, because this is kind of the way he's represented there. Like, he's desirable.
Yeah, in a way. But also it kind of reminds me of the last shot of the first episode, which was again this mass of grey people, where we have this sudden light and Makoto turning around and then seeing all the female characters.
Yeah, this is very similar because it coincides directly with the naked shots of all the characters. Yeah. And with the line, even if it means taking the long way around, I want my feelings to reach you. Shown over all of these characters. Yeah. I think this tells me that all of these characters really want their feelings to reach him.
Yeah, that's a running theme of the show.
Everyone wants a piece of him.
Everybody wants a piece of Makoto, and, I don't get it, but, you do you, girls. You do you.
Then we get one last shot of Kotonoha and Sekai. For some reason I wrote Makoto in there. I wrote Makoto. Kotonoha and Sekai throwing the blue feather into the air, and then we just see a shot of that blue feather in a puddle of water.
Yeah, which again relates to that blue angel.
Yeah, the blue angel thing. With the line, I hope you'll fly someday, my blue angel, which I think is a callback to, I don't know when you flew into my life, my blue angel, from the beginning.
I wrote something a bit later in the episode down. I don't know if we're going to get to it with this episode or with the next one, but I can mention it here because we've already seen it in the first episode. We have sometimes these shots of Makoto alone in his room, which last time we talked about how he uses the phone when he's in his room to sort of convey his real emotions, which he can't in person, to, for example, Sekai over phone. And so this situation was I interpreted it as in his room, he's who he really is, basically. While outside, he kind of puts on a front or can't really be true to himself. The room itself is very gray and sort of emotionless and doesn't really convey a lot about him as a person. Maybe it conveys this passiveness, this not really being a part of things. But something I thought was interesting, in these shots, he almost always wears a blue pajama. That's the only real color in the room, aside from like light wooden colors of the cupboard and his bed, basically. So the only real color we see in the area where Makoto is his true self is blue. So, Blue Angel?
Blue Angel.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Blue Angel. I have some very particular ideas about the Blue Angel thing.
Okay.
So, I just looked up Blue Angel, and what I found is a bit out there.
Okay.
So, Der blaue Engel, or The Blue Angel, is a German movie from 1930.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you'll find the plot curious when I tell you what that movie was about.
Oh, please tell me. I'm a sucker for intertextuality. Gimme.
Yes. So, the movie is about the protagonist who's a teacher in...
Most movies are about protagonists.
Yeah, I've heard. So it's about a teacher in a school in a pretty small town. His name is Rath. That's R-A-T-H. But his students also call him Unrat, which is a German
word for garbage.
Which is a fancy German word for garbage.
Yeah.
Because he's known for being incredibly strict all the time. And someday he discovers a picture from one of his students from a local club called Der blaue Engel. Der blaue Engel, the Blue Angel. And it shows a picture of one of the dancers there in a very kind of erotic fashion.
So it's like a nightclub.
Yes, it's a kind of a nightclub.
burlesque thing.
Yeah, the movie's from 1930, so I guess it's like wild 20s times.
Yeah.
So the teacher then heads to that nightclub for totally okay reasons.
Yeah.
He really wants him to talk to himself. He's only doing this for his students, not because he's in any way interested. But when he gets to this nightclub, he runs into Lula Lula, who's the name of a singer there. I'm just gonna call her Lula for short.
Okay.
And he pretty quickly falls in love with her. And eventually he even quits his job and they get married. But pretty quickly we find out that she's pretty much just after his money, because apparently he's pretty wealthy. And when he eventually runs out of money, their relationship starts going down the drain. And in the end, during some kind of weird circus act that he was forced to do, because he's going on tour with them because he's out of money, he discovers his wife with some artist they had making out. And he goes completely crazy. And I think he even tries to strangle her. At which point he gets arrested and locked up. Until eventually, I think years later, he gets out of prison again, gets back to his old school, and there, I think he like goes into the podium and then dies for some reason. I don't know why he dies, but it's probably pretty dramatic. So that's the plot of that movie.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
you've given me a treat here. That's delicious.
Do you like the treat I gave
Oh man, that's a great treat. Thank you so much.
you?
That's so good. Like, even it matches up so perfectly. Like, the song is from the perspective. Let's say the song is from the perspective of the girls of the show. Let's specifically Kotonoha is the important one here. The Blue Angel is Makoto. In the framing of this song. The Blue Angel being the one who dumps you as soon as they don't need you anymore and gets with someone else, but who you long for. Despite everything. I
hope you didn't just hear me pour iced tea into my glass.
They probably did, but who cares? Oh man, that's so good. So we've discovered another bit of intertextuality. Last time we discovered a kabuki play.
Yes.
That shares plot points with this. This time it's a German movie from the 30s. Who wrote this anime?
Some kind of mad genius.
What mad genius? Obsessed with classic literature from Japan and Germany. Movies from Germany. Okay, like if we say 1930s, then I think it's pretty reasonable. I don't know if that movie is well known in Japan. But Japan and Germany had some, let's say, friendly relations in the 1930s.
Oh no, let's
so
not go that way.
It might be possible that it's something that was sort of like... I know that a bit of media from Germany and Japan was transferred over at that time.
No,
so it might be something that's known in Japan.
From what I've seen, I think there's an English version of this movie. So it might be known in America or England.
Yeah. But that's really interesting. Okay, so small thing. This might be a coincidence.
That's absolutely impossible.
But I'm gonna treat it as it's not a coincidence. And that's the beauty of literary analysis.
That's the author we killed.
Okay, when we cut this, when we do the editing on this, I wanna have like a shotgun sound effect right here.
Author dead.
We killed him.
Joe's dead, we killed him. It's
Excellent
over.
work for you.
Goodbye. This is... What? Okay,
did
it's
it.
over. It's not over.
Okay, let's get to the next author.
So we're in the third scene now.
This show must have had a few authors. We can kill all of them.
So welcome to the third scene. With 36
Third
minutes
scene.
in.
It's gonna be a bit shorter after we cut it. Okay, third scene. What happens?
So first
Give me the deets.
First we get a thigh shot.
Mm-hmm.
Thigh shot of Sakai this time. This is the first time we see Sakai in this episode.
Is it also the first time we see Sakai's thighs? I don't think so.
No,
I think
I'm
we
sure
saw it
it
in last
isn't.
episode.
So
We are introduced to Sakai's thighs for the second time.
So now we have Sakai going completely nuts. Because apparently Makoto told her what happened on the date.
Yeah.
And she's really not very happy about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
She goes completely mad. She said that on his date he ran amok. That's literally what she says.
Mm-hmm. Ran amok. Yeah.
Ran amok.
Yeah.
So I just wrote down she completely overreacted. Because it seems a bit crazy.
I didn't feel that it was crazy, but I think there's different ways to look at it. She kind of criticizes him for just dragging Kotonoha along, basically, on this date after they talk a bit. His perspective on it isn't, what have I done wrong at this? His perspective on this is, I failed. Basically, the thing he was trying to do didn't work out at the end. Kotonoha didn't want to kiss him, and he doesn't understand why.
Mm-hmm. So what happens next, I think, is Makoto making sort of a valid point. Because what happens is Sekai says he did completely wrong. He should have not tried to kiss her at all. And I think he makes a valid point. Why did she kiss him out of nowhere then?
Yeah.
Which sort of like baffles her for a moment.
And she then says that kiss was like a greeting or whatever.
Yeah,
she
just
says
a greeting.
Literally. It was like a greeting, which he responds to with, "We're in Japan. We don't do that here." He basically calls her out on her bullshit at that point.
I also thought that this is sort of interesting, because I thought maybe the reason why he tried to kiss her and why this was an okay thing to do might have been sort of Sekai's influence, because she kissed him out of nowhere. And I thought maybe he thought that this was just an okay thing to do.
Although I think he says he read that he should do that in the book at the end of the date or something like that. But yeah, from how he frames it here, at least, he says it was kind of what she did, that he sort of sees a kiss as not that big a deal because of what she did at that point. And if we go with this influence theme, this sort of conversation ends with Sekai giving him film tickets to go see a movie with Kotonoha for the next date. And she basically promises him there. She later denies that she actually told him he should kiss her in the movie theater there. But at this point, what she pretty much clearly says to him is, if you go into the theater, it's dark there, you're gonna sit there, watch something romantic, and then you're gonna kiss.
Yeah.
So basically, if we take him at his word that Sekai sort of influenced him to try to kiss her, she's doing it again. She's again telling him,
talking about bad influences.
Don't worry, now you're gonna get to kiss her. Now it's gonna work out, dude.
Yeah. So she gives him the cinema tickets. We get a lot of Dutch angles.
Yeah.
And then comes something very interesting, I think, which is Setsuna.
Yeah, Sekai walks away from the situation and meets Setsuna.
Yeah, they kind of just have... He kind of just has a small talk, just says, oh, look at this guy. Makoto, he's like a totally hopeless case. And what then happens is Setsuna says that wasn't Sekai supposed to invite Makoto to the cinema?
That she bought the tickets to invite him originally.
And that really made me question, what does Setsuna know that we don't?
They're close friends, right? So I assume they talked about this in advance. And Sekai tries to brush it off at this point and says, I don't have time for that anyways, I'm too busy. But she doesn't deny it.
Actually, when Setsuna mentions, wasn't she supposed to go to the cinema with Makoto, she just blankly stares at the camera for 8 seconds straight until just laughing it off. I think she didn't expect this at all.
Yeah.
I think Setsuna is kind of onto her game, in a way.
That was also in the first episode, where she also said, why are you so invested in this dude?
Yeah. Like, I would think that Setsuna is just sort of worried about her friend, like, getting in trouble. But from things that happened later, this gets completely contradicted.
Although, no, I think the things later kind of still support that. When we get to that, we get to that. But generally, Setsuna's motivation seems to be to have Sekai be happy. Yeah. That seems to genuinely be her motivation throughout most of it. And being kind of confused by what the fuck Sekai is doing here. And what her game plan is. Yeah. So, Setsuna is reintroduced, becomes our most important character for the most part at this point, out of the ones who aren't the main three. And sort of, yeah.
She was, after all, the first person shown the intro that wasn't any of the protagonists.
I think there's also one additional shot where she's in. I'd have to look at it again. She basically gets one more shot than all the other secondary characters, I think, but I'd have to check again.
So, if essentially Sekai just kind of laughs it off and says, I don't got time for that.
Yeah.
Then she leaves. And at this point, Setsuna just kind of sighs.
And does her thing and stares.
What does she want? What is she doing? She watched that entire conversation too.
Yeah.
She was just standing there.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, she was standing there throughout the whole conversation, watched it, listened to it. Yeah. she's Sekai's friend, and she's confused by what Sekai's doing.
Sekai kind of spends a lot of this episode just watching Makoto and Kotonoha and watching what they're doing. And Sekai kind of watches her.
Kotonoha kind of watches Setsuna kind of watches Sekai.
She's the stalker.
Yeah. There's one shot later on in the episode. I think it's Sekai stalking someone, but it could also be Setsuna stalking someone. We'll get to that.
Okay. So now we move on to Makoto's place again.
Yeah, to a Makoto room scene where, again, he's wearing a blue pajama. We have this gray room
We have the Blue
him.
Angel. We have German movies from the 30s.
Yeah, we have these obvious allegories to German movies from the 30s. Perfect.
Here happens what you mentioned earlier. Makoto reads his love manual and he says that apparently... What was it again? Something that was outdated.
He said that at the start, that being too late is outdated at the first time when he's standing there reading the book.
But he said something else there.
He basically reiterates what Sekai told him as something that's in the book. When he can be in the cinema with her, he can expect a kiss in the dark and romantic atmosphere or whatever. He's basically playing out his moves on Kotonoha. And something that I think is interesting here, too, with a theme for the entire half of this episode, once we're going to get to it, and the entire episode in the end, is he kind of stands up and does, like, fighting moves.
Yeah, he sort of goes through his idea of how he wants the day to be. And as he talks about to himself, as he talks about holding her hand and holding her, he literally does punching moves in the air.
Yeah, which, to me, is a callback to the arcade game. Basically, him trying to plan out the date the same way you do a combo in a fighting game. Like, these are the exact moves that I have to do to win in the end. Which, we're gonna be done with this half of the episode soon, and then I'm gonna get to all of it. But I think there's an interesting theme brewing here.
So, he also talks about wanting a kiss. This is what he really wants this date to lead to. He wants to get a kiss from her. But as he kind of talks about, like, what should he do to prepare, he should brush his teeth. He also says that he should wear some new underwear, and that made me question whether he just wants to kiss her or not. Why would that be relevant?
Yeah, being prepared for anything, I guess, but yeah, still, it's kind of weird. Hey, at least he's getting a shower, probably, before he's meeting with her.
There's one more thing.
That's more than I'd expect from a gamer.
There's one more thing. He looks at the movie tickets and figures out that they only account for another day. Yeah. And are those some kind of universal movie tickets for
I think that's
movie?
universal tickets, yeah. You can watch any movie with that or something of the like. I know that in America it sometimes works like that. Like you buy a general ticket and then you get in, and from there you get to choose which movie you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense considering what happens in the cinema.
Yeah. We cut to another scene of preparation for this date now.
Okay, this is interesting because we've had something very similar in the previous episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a scene of Makoto kind of going through and imagining how he wants things to go. And then we get sort of an equivalent shot of Kotonoha, except it's way shorter. It has almost nothing substantial in it.
And it's extremely sexualized. Yeah. Like, we cut to Kotonoha in the form of a slow crawling shot up her naked backside in the bath. Which is, choice gaze there.
I think it's interesting what she does, though. Because what she says is she questions herself whether she's allowed to be like this.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I wasn't sure what she meant. I think what she really means is
not immediately kissing him.
Yeah. Should she be allowed to, like, show any kind of personality here?
Yeah, is it unfair? Is it unfair to Makoto to have your own pace at which you're going? Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, actually. And then her little sister comes in.
Yeah, she stands up from the bathtub. We get a cinematic boob wiggle from the...
Yeah.
Of course. And...
her sister just walks in. Apparently you can't lock your bathroom in Japan.
Yeah.
She just walks into her sister naked and she doesn't, like, flinch or something. I don't know. Maybe they're just cool with that. Maybe they're just a really cool family.
They're just a really cool family. And then she walks off, and that's the end of this shot.
I just want to talk about something real quick. Kotonoha's little sister. Kotonoha's little sister is my favorite character in School Days. Mm. She doesn't really do anything, but she's also the only character whose name I can remember always. Her name is Kokoro, which just means heart in Japanese because everyone has fairly obvious names. And also, she's the only female character in the show that doesn't want to bang Makoto as far as we know.
Yeah, that's good. Oh god, please don't.
She's also the only one who isn't nude in the opening.
Oh god,
Which,
thank god.
I'm giving this show very little credit, but that much credit I'm gonna give them. The little girl isn't naked. The other little girl is naked in the opening.
Of course.
Setsuna, but I think she's of age.
Speaking of, here's a lot of things I needed to mention here that I haven't mentioned since. As the cinema scene progresses...
Yeah, we're going to the theater now, right?
Yeah, as the cinema scene progresses, I was questioning how old are these characters anyway? Because this is not a movie for children anyway.
Yeah.
So...
Although, like, most horror movies are PG-16.
Yeah.
And most... sexual things. Yeah, depends.
So, there's an excruciating amount of character detail about every character on the wiki. For example, I can tell you now that Makoto's blood type is 0.
That's something that's always in visual novels and animes. Everybody knows what their blood types are. Why would I want to know that?
Now we know that he can donate blood to anyone. Is that symbolic? Maybe it is.
He should. He should donate all his blood right now.
Oh, he's going to.
Hey.
Anyway, it also states their exact date of birth and their age, and that confused me a lot because it says, for example, Kotonoha.
Oh no, this is gonna be terrible. Okay, go through.
No, it says that Kotonoha was born in 1989, and it says that she's 15 to 16. This is strange because that would mean that the anime takes place in 2004 or 5, but the Love Manual said 2007 on it. So either in the anime, all of their dates of birth are moved later.
Yeah, I assume that's
or
it.
Everyone's just 3 years older now.
Which would be very much preferred, because it would make things a little less creepy with the age. But I assume it's just moved forward, and the visual novel takes place in 2003-4.
What I also really had to know was how old is Setsuna, because she seems too young to be in this plot. So she was apparently born in 1990, which means that she's 14. Or 17 if we're 3 years later. So that's how old she is.
Okay, she just looks like a little... She's for the people who want a character who looks like a little girl.
Of course. At least she's not as young as I thought she would be.
She's not actually a little girl. She's just a little girl.
Another fun fact. If you Google School Days characters, you get a cast of 9 characters in a row, and the order is very interesting.
Okay.
I think first it's Sekai, then Kotonoha, then Sekai's sister... And I think then...
Kotonoha's sister.
Yeah, then Kotonoha's sister.
Wait, yeah, so not Sekai's sister. Sekai doesn't have a sister, right?
No.
Okay, I thought...
No. So the order is, I think Sekai, Kotonoha's sister, then Daisuke.
Who was Daisuke?
The buddy.
The buddy?
Yeah,
before...
And guess who the last one in the list is who doesn't even have an image?
Makoto?
Yeah.
Okay, my assumption is that the visual novel's main character is just you.
Yeah.
Like, you write in your name, and that's the main character. So Makoto is basically a creation for the anime, as sort of, like, the representation of the main character. Most visual novels kind of do this, right? Like, you're the one playing the plot.
Yeah. I think maybe Makoto was just added for the anime, I'm not sure.
That's probably it. Just gotta look it up real quick. I'm gonna pour myself some Freeway Cola Light in the meantime. Go to your local Lidl. This show is sponsored by Lidl.
Oh,
no,
we're doing this again.
I fucking wish it was. Sadly, it isn't.
Has the order changed or something? Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
So we get Kotonoha first, then Sekai, then Taisuke, and then Kokoro.
Okay, so I assume like these 3 are the ones you talk to most in the show. But also... Okay. The first 3 characters are Kotonoha, Sekai, and Taisuke. In the season, 3 love stories.
I didn't know.
Hey, you cowards who made the anime. Where's the Taisuke
Where's
love
the
plot?
Taisuke love plot? Well, there's one.
But that doesn't count. I want Makoto and Taisuke.
Don't we all?
Don't we all?
Don't we all want that?
That's the thing I think whenever, like, I played very few visual novels, very few dating sims, but I always just want to be with my best friend of the same gender. They're the best one for me. Why can't I be with them? Why do I have to be with these shitty dudes? I want to be with my best friend.
So the next shot is the cinema, or the next scene is the cinema, I should say.
We're gonna finish the cinema scene, and after that we're gonna cut the episode and then continue in the next one.
Okay. So now we have Kotonoha and Makoto on their second date. And with the universal ticket they have, I guess, they get a choice of 3 movies, namely The Day of the Dead 2, The Day of the Dead 2, Emilia's Love, and Wolf Woman 2. Lots of sequels today.
It's a good day for sequels, yeah. Maybe the original ones were in the visual now. So yeah, basically we have a shot here where it's kind of like hinted at which one they're gonna watch. Makoto asks her like, what do you want to see? And Kotonoha sort of gives an ambivalent answer. I don't know, what did she say exactly?
I thought she didn't say anything in particular.
Oh yeah, right, she just kind of looked at one of them.
So the camera pans over to The Day of the Dead 2. So kind of emphasizing that this is really the movie Makoto wants to watch.
Yeah.
Because he's a big boy. He wants to watch the zombie film.
The zombies.
And then there's one really short shot where we see the zombie movie.
Yeah, where we see the zombies attacking.
And for one moment, it almost seemed like the show was this close to establishing Kotonoha having any kind of character.
Yeah, because it kind of seems like the movie she picks is the horror movie.
And I wish that was true.
Yeah, that would have been really fun.
Like, what? She likes horror movies?
But then we just figure out the characters in the romance movie are just watching that horror movie. And they just went into the romance movie.
So meta. Holy shit.
Oh, movies and movies? Ooh, okay. We're going really out there now.
Anyway, speaking of movies and movies, they now watch their romantic movie called Emilia's Love.
Yeah.
So the plot, I just wrote down like one line. We have Emilia, who I guess is the protagonist, because that's the film's name.
Amélie.
And we have some guy called Peter, who she's apparently with. And some other woman called Chris, who apparently introduced Peter to Emilia.
Do you want to know the one sentence I wrote about the movie?
Yeah.
This movie is literally about the show.
Yeah, I mean, of course it is.
It's very obviously literally about the show.
Also the next comment I made is Kotonoha points out the obvious.
Yeah, Kotonoha that says, hey, that's like us. Oh, really, Kotonoha? I didn't notice. Please, Kotonoha, please refrain from that. We're the ones doing the meta-analysis, okay? You don't have to do that. We do that already.
Okay. So next we get my favorite line in the thing, I guess, or my favorite part, which is where Kotonoha says Makoto is kind of like Peter because he's cool.
Because Peter's cool.
And I wish we would get more of this Metal Gear Solid kind of dialogue.
Kotonoha, do you think that love can bloom even on the battlefield?
I wish we would get more of that stuff in less actual school days.
And then Makoto answers that with, I think you're like Emilia, but you're not like Emilia because you're way more pretty than Emilia. Which again, romance, but also it kind of shows off again his approach to romance, which is just going way too much out. Like, she said something that's actually kind of sweet, and he had to immediately one-up her. No, I love you more than that.
I will always love you twice times as much.
I love you infinite more.
Huh?
Bam.
What now?
Can't do that.
So he almost fucks it up, that's what I wrote down. And then the movie transitions to a sex scene.
Yeah.
The reason why I looked up the age of all of these characters.
And as the characters fuck on screen, the only thing Makoto does, he doesn't look at the screen. After he looked at the pin-ups before, his eyes are glued to Kotonoha. He can only look at Kotonoha and describes the things he finds beautiful about her, bit by bit. Of course, the camera follows his gaze, very literally. First, he's laser focused on her lips, which I very much didn't appreciate, because the lips are horrible. And then when he remembers Sekai's advice, he leers at her big breasts. For a bit.
Of course he does.
Here's my notes for what happens after that. He then acts super creepy.
As he physically approaches her. So it goes really bad again. And we get the best scene in this movie again. This is generally just the best scene in the film. Because he gets a slap in the face. Yeah,
he tries to... He first puts his hand on her hand. And she seems shocked by that. Like, just hand-holding as the next step seems pretty big for her. And after she's clearly kind of weirded out by him just trying to hold her hand, he tries to force a kiss. And he gets slapped.
This is reality coming back to Makoto.
Yeah, this is the point where I thought, here should be the fake credits joke. So, credits walk down, show's over. And then we see the end of the film, which ends with the analog to Sekai. It's basically just Sekai, but in the movie, getting with the analog to Makoto and him betraying the analog to Kotonoha. Which, again, is very, very obvious and heavy-handed foreshadowing.
Yeah.
After that, there's a short scene. I think that's going to be the last thing we talk about. Or, like, 2 short scenes. One is that Makoto and Kotonoha have sort of an awkward dinner at, like, a cafe after this. So she didn't get away immediately and dump him immediately, which she definitely should have, but no, she didn't. They sit at a dinner, and it basically, everything that happens there is that Makoto blames everything on Sekai.
He does this a couple more times.
Yeah.
And at this point...
He calls her a nosy girl again.
Yeah. Well, at this point, Kotonoha, I think, sort of suspects that maybe Makoto also has a thing for Sekai, because she calls him out on it.
Yeah. She's worried about how close they are. And after that happens a line from Makoto that I wrote down again because I thought it was the most fucking hilarious thing ever. When she says, you two are too close to each other, he says, basically she just sits next to me. And yeah, that completely describes their relationship before the show. Wow, you seem really close to each other. I don't know how that happened. She just sits next to me. Everything came from her. She just sits next to me. It's pretty funny.
There's a lot of involuntary confrontation in this show.
Yeah. And in the end, the date ends with the train station again.
Yeah. As Kotonoha apologizes.
Yeah, she apologizes to him again after everything that happened.
And then she just storms off.
Yeah, she runs off after apologizing again. So, we've seen 2 dates in this episode. And I think something that's become kind of obvious here, and that I want to kind of focus on in my interpretation of this half of the episode and a bit of the next episode where it kind of gets resolved, is Makoto's approach to dating, which I think is a nice bit of meta text, a nice bit of meta fiction that kind of shows one aspect of what this show might be trying to do. Because how does Makoto go about the date? First, he didn't really ask Sekai. Sekai sort of arranged everything for him. And after that, he got out and bought this love book, this love manual, and then tried to follow the steps in the love manual. At the date originally where they went to, he overdid everything he wanted to give to her. Instead of giving her like this 1 puppet, he gives her 10 puppets. Instead of giving her something from the menu, he gives her a whole bunch of shit. And at this stage, he tries to rush beyond her pace. To her, hand-holding is scandalous, and he tries to rush the kiss. I think Makoto, as literally the player insert character in the visual novel, is going about this like someone playing a dating sim. Or a video game in general. He's going about it by first reading basically the game guide, telling him how the game works, trying to follow these steps perfectly, and instead of giving her like 1 gift as you would maybe in a visual novel, he gives her 10 to get the maximum results. He even literally plays a video game at the arcade and compares the steps he's going to do to fighting moves in a video game. There's a very clear relationship here between his approach to dating and playing a video game. And what that ultimately comes down to is first Sekai telling him, it doesn't work like that. You can't just go about it like a game. You have to think about what she wants, not what you want to achieve. And all the things he tries to do in the same way you do them in a game, in the same steps you'd follow with the love manual, absolutely don't work out for him. Completely turn to shit. He completely fails at them. So I see this as sort of a meta commentary on visual novels and dating sims in total. That life isn't like a dating game. If you really want to date someone, you have to think about them. You have to think about what they might want, and there's no one right path to it.
At first, I thought, the last time we tried to record this episode, at first I thought it was kind of a bit insane, but I kind of thought that throughout the entire episode, this becomes more relevant later, Makoto never truly apologizes. There's multiple times where he's edged to apologize to Kotonoha. He never really does. He always just tries to figure out what he did wrong or blames anyone else, blames somebody else, usually Sakai.
Or Kotonoha blames herself for him, basically.
Yeah. He just never does anything wrong. He just never understands.
Yeah, he never understands that he is to blame for his failures. He just thinks, again, kind of like when you've lost in a video game too much and you get to the point where you're like, shitty game. Why did they fucking do it like that? I'm doing everything right. Why am I failing? And we should keep an eye on that side of Makoto, because that's something that's gonna sort of be present throughout the entire show. Like, I specifically remember a scene from the last episode in some of the last moments of the show where Makoto still thinks the exact same way. Why are these things happening to me? I did everything right.
Yeah, Makoto never learns.
Yeah, he kind of doesn't learn from his failures.
Yeah, I think that's it for this episode then.
Yeah. We'll be back with the next one, which will be the second half of episode 2. I'm also gonna, in that one, give a bit more background. I thought that it might be nice to, in these episodes, give a bit of like a lecture on critical theory, for example, on some sort of film analysis or literary analysis theory that I can explain to my brother here, who isn't that well versed in this, and by extension to all of you. To have sort of an educational part of this whole shit show, and maybe get some value out of all of this at the end. So none of you who have to go study literature or film studies and can study something that's useful and makes you money maybe at some point. So do we have an idea for an outro by this point?
No, bye.
Yeah, okay, bye.